Hello and welcome to another round of Championship predictions from the Honest Football Podcast. I'm Craig Savage, and with me, as always, is Mr. Daniel Cody. Let's have a quick recap of the midweek action in the Championship. There were 6 games, and there was one perfect score overall, and that was Daniel Cody's 0-0 draw with Blackburn against Millwall. Other than that, Daniel Cody got points on Luton winning, Sheffield United winning, and obviously Fulham winning as they won 5-1. I only get 2 points out of that. That was Fulham and the Blackburn Millwall draw. So Daniel Cody wins midweek by 6 points to 2. So let's get on with the first game of this Championship weekend. We start off on Friday night, and guess who's on Friday night, people? It's West Bromwich Albion. They're at home to Huddersfield. West Brom won a game of football for once. Steve Bruce is a miracle worker. He won 2-0 at his old club, Hull, and Huddersfield didn't play in the league in midweek. They played in the FA Cup. They lost 2-1 to Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, but they were very convincing against Peterborough the Friday before. It was game over in 10 minutes, which I think you mentioned when reviewing Peterborough midweek. Monday night against Forest, do you know what? It was actually a really good cup tie, particularly the first half. Look, they've had a good season, maybe slightly disappointed with a cup result, but in the league, they're still one of the form teams. They're level on points with Bournemouth. I think it's 18 Championship games unbeaten. It's a ridiculous record. To do that in a Championship at any stage of the season with any team is a remarkable achievement. So you've got to give them more credit than they get. West Brom, look, it was almost the opposite. They weren't convincing, but individual magic came to the party. Carlin Grant doing the job, and he's coming up against his old club now. So he'll fancy a goal again. For West Brom, it's just getting some goals, but I don't think you can bank on them to win it. I'm stuck between 1-0 and 2-1 Huddersfield. I'm going to go 2-1 Huddersfield.
Yeah, I probably would have gone 2-1 Huddersfield, but I'm going to go 1-0 to the Terriers. Yeah, I think with what you said about the 18 games unbeaten run, I think it's grossly underrated. I know obviously they're in third place at the moment, but you think they've lost a game in that little bit of run, but they haven't. Probably the 3-0 game last week was probably the time they actually scored more than 2, from what I can recall. So it's been absolutely brilliant by Huddersfield. West Brom, yeah, it went great, but they needed to win ugly. Needed to just get those 3 points. Know how to win a game for once. Ron Goy's come out saying that it's been an embarrassment to the fans, and I have to agree because the football has been atrocious before Steve Bruce arrived and in those 4 or 5 games that Steve Bruce has had now. So I think it's a long way back now for West Brom to reach the playoffs, unless they go on some real serious form. With the teams that are up there at the moment, I can't really see West Brom making the playoffs. Huddersfield looks solid for the playoffs. I'm going to go 1-0 to them. Right, next up at Oakwell, it is Barnsley versus Fulham in the early kickoff on Saturday. Barnsley were minutes or seconds away from picking up 3 vital points, but they conceded late on to Stoke. And Fulham do what Fulham do away from home. They won 5-1. Let's start with Barnsley first. Barnsley, that might be a kick in the teeth for them.
I think it's more than a kick in the teeth. I think it could be a pivotal moment in this relegation scrap, because if they'd have won that, as we said, 3 points behind with a better goal difference, they would have been arguably the favourites to stay up. But 95th minute equaliser after the defeat against Derby at the weekend, it's going to be a massive hammer blow. And let's be honest, when you look at a game like Fulham and the form they're in, particularly away from home, you realise how important that 3 points would have been, because they aren't getting anything here. Fulham, excellent. I know they were helped by a ridiculous challenge late in the first half from Swansea, which meant they were able to go on a goal glut in the second half. I can't bank against Fulham. The question we all have is what score? Are they going to keep it tight, or is it going to be another one of Fulham's 5, 6s and 7s? I'm going for keeping it tight. I'm going to go for 2-0 to Fulham. I don't think it'll be vintage, because I think Barnsley are going to have to try and play for a point.
Yeah, I'm going for Fulham win. Obviously, Fulham done it again. Once the team goes down to 10 men, they punish them badly. Yeah, Fulham just do what Fulham do really. Barnsley, on the other hand, heartbreak, because they were there for the taking Stoke, and Stoke haven't been in really good form at all. But I'm going to go Fulham to win by 3-1, because they did get a bit complacent, and you can see that from that Swansea goal. Right, next up, it is Birmingham versus Hull at St Andrews. Birmingham beat Bristol City by 2-1 last time Birmingham played, and Hull obviously lost 2-0 to West Brom.
Yeah, and let's just say with Birmingham, Talif Chong's back, and so is the party, because It looked like he'd never been away. Scored the opening goal, was an influence throughout. And away from home, they were always a threat when they had that pace and that quality on the counter. Hull, they're a bit of a mixed bag at the minute. Let's be honest. They've won the games they needed to. They're building a style for next season. I wouldn't expect them to be spectacular, but Birmingham aren't great at home. I would be tempted to go for a draw, but I think Birmingham might nick it. I'm going to go same score again, 2-1. I just think Birmingham will have that edge, and they've had a week off, so hopefully everyone will be fit.
I disagree. I'm going to go for the Championship's favourite scoreline of 1-1. Birmingham do have that tendency to win a couple of games and then lose a couple of games. I don't know. Hull due a performance at some point, considering it has been a bit. They beat Peterborough last time they were away from home, so yeah, I expect it to be a draw. Nothing special. These two's got pretty much nothing to play for, so 1-1. Right, next up, it's Blackburn versus Bristol City at Ewood Park. Blackburn could still be playing now and still won't score. They drew 0-0 with Millwall. And Bristol City obviously lost to Birmingham.
Yeah, bizarre game, wasn't it? The Blackburn one. Conceded no shots at all on their goal, but just couldn't take chances. Didn't create much that was clear-cut, in fairness. And again, back to 2 games without a goal now. Still haven't scored from open play in a long, long time. And you do wonder when you watch Blackburn in open play at the moment, where is the goal coming from? And even when they have chances, they don't have players in confident form. Bristol City, probably the first time I've worried about Nigel Pearson from a tactical point of view, because quite often this season, they've run out of steam late on. They've not had much investment to bolster the squad this year, but that one, I feel he got it tactically wrong, and they were out of the game within 15 minutes. So if ever Blackburn are going to get back into form, it'll be this one. But this could be a hammer blow for them. They lose this weekend, there's a chance they're out the playoffs. Thankfully for them, Bristol City got the 4th worst away record in the league. I'm going to go for Blackburn to nick it 1-0. It doesn't matter whether it's a scrappy goal from a set piece. They just need to nick a win.
Yeah, Blackburn need to nick a win. They need to get back into that winning form. They picked up that one win in pretty much the whole February and March, really, and that was that QPR game. Yeah, I'll be so frustrating to have the chances and not take the chances. But that's the one thing about Blackburn, because they've relied on Brereton Diaz's goals so much. I think it's always concerned for a team has relied on, obviously with one striker, you need their backup man, and they haven't really got that backup man to score goals. That's the concern. Bristol City, 13 games now and 15 that they've conceded at least 2, which is obviously worrying, and they've done that in the first 10 minutes against Birmingham last Saturday. And Bristol at the moment got the worst away record. No wins in the last 6. I conceded 18 in that 6. It does point to a Blackburn win. I'm going to go for that as well. So I'm going to go by 2-1. Next up at Bloomfield Road, it is Blackpool versus Swansea. Blackpool beat Stoke by 1-0 at the Bet365 Britannia Stadium. And Swansea obviously got battered 5-1 at Fulham. Let's talk about Swansea, because obviously they were a recent game and they got trounced by Fulham. It happened again. They've done the same thing again. They want to play from the back. They're down the 10 men. They want to play from the back. You can't do it against Fulham, who like to press, and they got caught out again.
It didn't bother me that they were doing it at the start, and actually it wasn't a huge issue. But as you mentioned, in the second half, down to 10 men, you would have thought there would be a slight change of tact. And that's when you've got to have a plan B, and it was evident there. Can we just say it was a stupid challenge? Whether or not you think it's a red card or whatever, why are you lunging in from there? There was no need. It wasn't a dangerous area. I didn't get it. But poor decision-making, some similarly in possession in the second half. And look, Fulham have done that to plenty of teams this season, and Swansea have been better at home recently, bar that game. So we can't read too much into it, but it was a bad night. And Blackpool, we know, are a rock-solid team at home. They've won 9 out of 18 this year. They don't concede too many, about 1 a game. I don't know how Swansea win this game, to be brutally honest. I think they'll nick a goal because Piro's been great all season. They've got a few good attacking talents, but Blackpool engage high, and I think they will catch them out at least once or twice. I'm going to go for Blackpool to win 3-1. They've had an excellent season, and we just say if Blackpool win this, they go past the 50-point mark and maybe just an outside chance at the playoffs.
No, don't be silly. They're not an outside chance for players. And that's been very respectful. It's been a fantastic season so far for Blackpool. Many probably tipped them to go down. and they're very close to the 50-point mark. I think it's a fantastic return for them. Yeah, obviously, there's a great 1-0 away win at Stoke. Stoke, obviously, were on, I said before, they were in pretty poor form, took advantage of that poor form. And I say my bit about Swansea, they don't learn. I'm sick of it. I'm sick. I just watched the highlights. I'm like, what are you doing? It's so frustrating. The passing from the back. It's so I'm frustrated from this. I'm going Blackpool to win 2-1 because I can't keep going on about Swansea. It's every time they lose. I'm like, what are you doing? They do the same thing every day. They don't have a plan B. They don't have a plan B. I cannot see a plan B in that team. Right, moving on. Bournemouth, they're at home at the Vitality Dean Court. They're at home to Derby. Bournemouth drew 1-1 at home to Peterborough. That's obviously disappointing draw for them. Obviously lost at the weekend as well. Derby, they beat Barnsley by 2-0. So having Barnsley drop points in midweek was ideal for Derby.
Yeah, and obviously they've got the best goal difference down there because of the points deduction. One of the team goals of the season as well, last weekend at Derby. Tom Lawrence was back in and was a very influential figure in that game. Ravel Morrison, 2 goals. Very important one for him, and to be on the end of that, great. He's had a good season under Wayne Rooney, which, to be fair, a lot of people doubted that signing when he came in. Bournemouth, 22 shots to 6, but he only hit the target twice. And yes, they had a couple of glorious chances in that game, but you've got to win games like that. And you mentioned it actually in the last episode before midweek. It's all good for Bournemouth having the 4 games in hand, but if they get through 2 or 3 of them and they haven't picked up wins, the pressure is going to start to mount because the gap will then only be 3 or 4 points, and you suddenly haven't got that buffer of, oh, well, but we've got 3 games in hand. So not panic yet, but certainly a concern. 1 point out of 6 for them. Derby are scrapping for their lives. I think it's more important to them. And if they can nick a result and Barnsley lose to Fulham, they're going to start to believe. I'm going against the odds because Derby haven't been great away from home this season. Championship's favourite scoreline. I've just got a hunch they're going to nick something.
So do I. I'm going to go 1-0 Derby.
Wow.
I don't know. This is where the panic starts. We've had teams before. Brentford a couple of years ago panicked and bottled it. They learned the lesson from it, and I could see this happening to Bournemouth. I really can, and I think there's too much pressure. Obviously, I don't know whether it's the fans making pressure on them or this January deadline day signings have got a bit of pressure on. I don't know. I see that. I sense a bit of panic in this Bournemouth camp at the moment. Derby obviously got a fight for the lives. They've got improved that away form. So I'm going to go 1-0. I think they could do this. Right, next up, the Cardiff City Stadium. It is Cardiff versus Preston. None of these teams played midweek, so good for them. Morrison obviously signed a new contract that we've completely missed the last 2 weeks. So do you think that's been rewarded? Do you think he deserved that extra extension in his contract?
Well, I think it goes back to something we mentioned in the last couple of manager specials, particularly with Peterborough and Reading and that. There aren't really many managers out there other than the old school short-term fixers. And they obviously had that with McCarthy. It worked out at the end of the season, but not the start of the next one. So given the fact that they're performing pretty solidly, he certainly shored them up defensively. If they can get a top quality striker in to replace Kiefer Moore in the summer, then I'd argue he is the right man. I don't see them being many better candidates out there. Back-to-back wins for them. It was a classic away performance. Less than 30% of the ball at QPR. Nicked it on the counter-attack. It's what we quite like to see. And we said it a lot last season about possession meaning nothing and Cardiff going back to that way again. Preston, similarly, very good performance. Played almost like the away side against Bournemouth. And they're 3 unbeaten now. And you've got to say Ryan Lowe's another man who's come in and done a pretty good job with them there. Both teams a lot better defensively. I have no idea how to predict this game. I'm working on the basis that Preston away this season have been a lot better than Cardiff have at home. And I'm going to go for them to edge it. 1-0. I don't think it's going to be a classic by any means, but both of these teams have done their job now. So happy days all round.
I'm going to go 1-1. Despite Preston is the 3rd best away team at the moment, won the 3 out of the 6 games, so away from home. So they are doing better. But I don't know. I generally don't know about this game. That's why I'm just going to sit on the fence and go 1-1. I can't really have much to say about these two teams, and that's a good thing. So I've got no complaints about either team. All right, next up at the CBS, it's his Coventry versus Sheffield United. Coventry lost 1-0 to Luton Town, and Sheffield United battered his old manager's side, Middlesbrough, by 4-1. It's Coventry's first successive defeats of the season.
Yeah, and let's be fair, they've had a really good season as well. I look at that game quite poignantly, to be honest, because Coventry obviously came up a year later than Luton. They're about 1 year behind in the development, and they're in a similar position to Luton were last year. So I saw a few Coventry fans after a little bit panicky and worried about the playoffs slipping away. I think they're doing brilliantly, so let's not worry about that. Unfortunately, it was an even game. It probably was a 0-0 game, but it was just one defensive error, a missed header, which allowed Elijah Adebayo in. Sheffield United was scintillating. I watched that game. It was attacking, front-footed. It was probably one of their best performances. Great to see that some of the players that came in the Premier League starting to develop now as well. Sander Berger's starting to look like a powerhouse. Morgan Gibbs-White scored a great goal towards the ending on loan. And Billy Sharp was there again, as always. So one defensive error, it's not going to worry them too much. They're up into the playoffs. I think they're probably going to stay there now. Coventry haven't been great at home for the second half of the season. I'm going to go Sheffield United to nick it 2-1.
I'm going to go 3-2 to Sheffield United. This is going to be, I think this will be a good game. I really do. Sheffield United, very confident at the moment. They'll probably be disappointed that obviously conceded late against Forest, but they another team that was obviously around the playoffs to batter Middlesbrough. Great win for them. Nice to see them playing a bit more attacking like they were under Wilder when they got promoted from the Championship a couple of seasons ago. So, yeah, everyone's really confident. Everyone's buoyant. The Bramall Lane is bouncing again. But this would be tough. If Coventry can up the ante with the crowd, this could be really good games. But I think Sheffield United might nick it by 3-2. Right, next up is Chris Wilder's new side. It is Middlesbrough. They're away at Millwall. Obviously, Millwall drew 0-0 with Blackburn. Millwall's still unbeaten. Borough's away record at the moment is atrocious.
It is atrocious. The performance against Sheffield United was awful. To be fair, they weren't great at home to Luton. They were poor away to Barnsley. The West Brom game was quite close, even at home. And then at Bristol City, they were poor. It's not the fact they're losing away games. And bar the Sheffield United one, they're against teams near the bottom as well. So if they want to be in the playoffs, they've got to find some consistency on the road. Millwall, still one of the form teams in the division. Yes, concerns that they snuck a 1-0 against Reading, then didn't even have a shot against Blackburn. And you got to feel sorry for any fans that travelled up there to see it. But it might end up being a crucial point in the push for the playoffs. They're still only 4 points behind. And you'd have to say they're favourites based on their home form this season, 9 wins out of 17. Middlesbrough have only won 4 away games all campaign. So it's not just a Chris Wilder problem. The safe money's 1-0 Millwall, isn't it? But I'm going to go 2-0 Millwall.
I'm going to quickly talk about Millwall. I think it's probably one of the best 0-0s I've seen all season. They have no shots at all, none on target, none off target, and get a point.
It's disciplined.
It's very disciplined. It feels like a victory. I'm happy with that. I like that sort of thing. Middlesbrough, I think they got tired. I think obviously 3 games a week. They had extra time against Spurs, a tough game against Luton that to win late on, and Sheffield United probably the worst team to play against next. So. And they got caught. I think they just got tired. But because he's 4, it's not good. It's obviously unacceptable. If you want to be up there, goal difference might be key as well. So 3 goals is not ideal. I think they're going to lose again. So I'm going to go Millwall to win by 2-1. Right, 3 games to go. Nottingham Forest versus Reading. Nottingham Forest beat Huddersfield 2-1 in the Cup. And before that, they drew 1-1 late on with Sheffield United. Reading, they lost 1-0 to Millwall. So is this a home banker?
Personally, I think so. The only issue is that Forest have then got a midweek game and then Liverpool in the Cup the following weekend. Do they try and rotate the squad a bit and think they can still get away with a win? And Reading maybe not looking over their shoulder quite as much as they were due to that last-minute Stoke goal against Barnsley. But based on my other predictions, I think they're going to be a bit closer at the end of the day. I'm going to bank on Forest to play their first team. It was a great cup tie, as I mentioned earlier, against Huddersfield. And Reading, they're so poor. They're so poor defensively. Paul Ince, we've discussed it. I know he got the first win, but I don't think he's the right man. Back-to-back defeats since. The goal difference is something they've got to be wary of. They've let in 68 goals, nearly 2 per game. Well, they're going to add to that here. I am going for my big hunch of the weekend. I'm going for 5-1 to Nottingham Forest. I think if Forest can get 2 early goals, the City ground gets bouncing, I think Reading claps. And we've seen it 3 or 4 times this year already.
Yeah. I'm glad you said 5-1. I'm going to go 3-0 to Forest. That was a good win in midweek. Monday against Huddersfield, because they had to come from behind. Huddersfield have been unbeaten it forever. I think they will still rotate the side because they got QPR after that on the Wednesday. So I expect some changes a little bit. Not too many, but I expect some. But they're still far too strong for this Reading side. We said enough about Reading in the past couple of months, and it's not going to look pretty. I'm going to go 3-0 to Forest. Right, last game on Saturday. It is Peterborough versus Stoke. Peterborough drew 1-1 with Bournemouth. You could say it's an excellent away point, but they still need to pick up wins. And Stoke with a last-minute equaliser against Barnsley.
Yeah, Stoke's season just sort of frittering away a bit, isn't it? I mean, we were having a chat about it on the podcast chat afterwards. You don't really know what to make of it. And maybe Michael O'Neill is under pressure. The locals are growing restless. They haven't won a game in God knows how long, neither have Peterborough, in fairness. But I guess for both of them, just to stop the rot of defeats was probably a nice thing in midweek. I guess Peterborough being 1-0 up at half-time, ultimately there might be some disappointment, but it is a good effort. It's a more Grant McCann-esque performance, suggests that he's had a couple of weeks to work with them. But like you say, they need wins and they need them quick. This is probably, bar the whole game on paper, their best chance of getting a win in recent weeks. And you feel it's now or never time. Jack Marriott got a landmark goal in a week. We've got to mention that too. Fair play to him. He's going to need a couple more this weekend. I'm going for it because it's now or never. Peterborough to win 3-1. Stoke have got nothing to win. They look uninspired. And I think Michael O'Neill might be out of a job soon. I genuinely think he might be losing the dressing room.
Yeah, you throw me off there by winning 3-1. I don't know what's happened. I really don't know, because they're not aggressive enough. I really don't. Obviously, lost to Blackpool last week, and then they got the point to Barnsley. They had to get late on to get the point against Barnsley. And there's no disrespect to Barnsley, because I thought Barnsley done quite well. But they're not performing at all. They haven't performed at all this year. So I don't know what's happened to Stoke. I really don't. And I did question it to wind Charlie up, and I think he's on the same level now, because he's always a Michael O'Neill specialist, and now he's questioning Michael O'Neill at Stoke. But actually, no, he's not questioning Michael O'Neill. He's questioning Stoke rather than Michael O'Neill. Peterborough have to win the game. Stoke are not playing well at all. It's the two worst teams in form in the Championship. This had a draw. 1-1 for me. 1-1. And the final game on Sunday, it is Luton Town versus Queen's Park Rangers. Luton won 1-0 away at Coventry. I should have more faith in my team. And QPR lost 2-1 to Cardiff. QPR not on good form. Luton are on pretty good form, but Luton's home record against QPR is poor.
Yeah, and Luton's record on TV generally isn't that great either. And I do worry a little bit about it being moved to Sunday lunchtime, I've got to be honest, because I don't think it's going to suit the atmosphere. As you mentioned, we always struggle at home to QPR. We generally struggle against QPR. And with QPR's recent form, with us now going above them in the table, there's going to be that expectancy that actually we should be the team on the front foot winning the game. I just think it's the weekend where it might go wrong. Again, Luton have got two big games next week at home to Preston, away to Hull, that are arguably more winnable on paper. I want to go for an optimistic draw, but truth is, I think it'll be a thriller and QPR will win 3-2. It always happens.
Yeah, Luton won their way. Obviously, the first time we've beaten Coventry twice in the season since 87, so before I was born. So that's pleasing. Alex Palmer redeemed himself, which is good. He needed it. I blame it. The first game was rustiness. Let's be brutally honest. It was rustiness. But it's good to see him back. Obviously, he got the assist. Good finish by Adebayo. That's what he needed to boost his confidence.
Yeah.
Luton still have obviously players out, and it's starting to be Luton away from home. It's the 1-0 performances. So they'll take that. Like the coaching staff weren't even there. They looked like ill. Nathan Jones looked ill. He didn't even do the press conference afterwards. So a good recovery from a poor performance against Middlesbrough. That puts them back into the playoffs. QPR need to find that form again, because they will get caught. But QPR got to be careful. They're now at the playoffs. They've been in the playoffs pretty much all season. Now they dropped out of it. Big game. If Luton win, opens the points gap up a bit more, especially that cushion to QPR. What am I going for? You going for QPR win? I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory for the Hatters. Let's have a quick recap what we just predicted for this weekend's action. I've gone for a 4-1 victories for the home side and a crazy 3-2 Sheffield United win against Coventry. Daniel Kerr has gone for a 5-1 win for Nottingham Forest against Reading, and Peterborough to shock the card with a 3-1 victory at home to Stoke City. And those are predictions for this weekend's action in the Championship. Do you agree with us or disagree with us? Let us know in the comments and give us your predictions. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Honest Football Podcast, and you can follow us on Twitter at Honest Football 3. And we'll see you next time.